G'day guys, we're back again with lessons from the legends, the 100 greatest fighters of all time, and learning to see which techniques worked for them and made them great. And we're talking about Mike Tyson's favourite fighter of all time, Jack Dempsey. Frankly, one of my favourite fighters of all time as well. There's a really fun YouTube video where someone's put together where the compilation of Jack Dempsey doing a fighting technique and then Mike Tyson doing the same thing 60 years later. It's really, really cool. But Dempsey, for those of you who don't know, has an amazing backstory. I won't get into it here, but one of the greatest stories in American sports, and his fighting style was very similar to Mike Tyson. Picture Mike Tyson, but about 30 or 40 pounds lighter, and that's basically Jack Dempsey. So his key was getting his chin down, lots of head movement to get on the inside of his opponent's punches, and then throw combinations. And combinations would typically not feature jabs. They were very much more hooks and crosses. So you're thinking Mike Tyson, Joe Frazier, very similar to those sort of guys. Lots of head movement. And today we're talking about the Dempsey roll, which would basically go on to make a lot of great knockouts through the heavyweight division, as Jack Dempsey was heavyweight champion for a very long time, over 6 years, but he was very small for a heavyweight. He was previously a light heavyweight. He was just a touch over 6 foot tall, and never like the biggest, most solid guy, but he hit like an absolute truck and would throw combinations of punches as well. That's the thing with Mike Tyson. He's not necessarily the hardest single puncher in boxing history, but his combination of speed, along with his strength, equaled like a very powerful punch, and he would throw them in bunches too. He'd throw combinations. So with Dempsey, he was impossible to hit on the chin, and that's the thing I really want to emphasize with Dempsey, and this is what allowed him to get on the inside so often, along with his head movement. Basically, he would keep his chin tucked down. So there's a drill we used to do with the kids where we basically get them to hold a tennis ball, and with the kids usually you had to go something a bit smaller, but like any little like handball, and just pin it down between their neck, their chest and their chin. And then you're essentially looking through the tops of your eyelids at your opponent. And that would basically keep your chin down, so then all your opponent hit was the forehead, the skull, and not so much the face and the nose and the chin. So that's what you want to avoid. And then with Dempsey, he was able to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And once he's in range, he can come through with hooks, he can come through with right hands, he can come through with multiple hooks, and he basically just put it all together and lead to a lot of knockouts. So that is the big key with Jack Dempsey. Again, amazing figure in boxing history. If you guys do want a video on one of the greatest heavyweights, greatest boxers of all time, I'm more than happy to do one with this guy. But yeah, basically keeping the chin down. The head movement, how it would work is you're essentially slipping and ducking and weaving. So the slip is basically where you bring one shoulder across your body, and they'll then take your head off center and avoiding punches. You can do it with the other side as well. Then with the ducking and weaving, you'll sort of come down and then come up one way. If you're looking to throw with the right, you can do the duck and the recoil in the one motion, then come with the right. If you want to go with the left, same sort of thing, duck, left. And that duck, and as you come up, is basically what gives you the recoil to then throw the punch through. So a little lesson there on Jack Dempsey. Ended up, he was a hobo originally. He'd move around from town to town. He didn't really get much money for doing anything because he was just a teenager and a labourer, but he would go through, ride the rails, which meant he would grab the axles of the bottom of trains and get free rides that way by holding on to the bars under the train, which is one of the most insane things I've ever heard, but it was a thing that people used to do. And just so they didn't get caught, getting a free ride by anyone, they were underneath hiding. And then, but the thing that would give him the most money is going into bars at local places and basically saying, hey, I can't sing, I can't dance, but I can kick anyone's ass in the whole place. And the owners would often be like, okay, cool, this guy's like the local bully, like the local guy who causes all the trouble. We'll pay you money to beat him up and throw him out. So yeah, sometimes he won, sometimes he didn't, but essentially that's how he honed his skills of developing punching power through obviously twisting through the hips, twisting through the feet, and finally you throwing all your body weight into the punches, keeping his chin down, keeping his head moving from side to side, and throwing those combinations of hooks, and ultimately that's how he ended up winning the World Heavyweight Championship of the World in 1919, Frankly, he would have done it earlier if it wasn't for World War One. That pushed his sort of first challenge back of several years. But if you look at his resume, look at how often he was fighting, how often he was beating top heavyweights, he was beating these guys very, very, very quickly, and much bigger guys than him through all the late 1910s. So he could have easily been a world champion for almost 10 years. And then obviously the long count, he finally lost the title against Gene Tunney, another great boxer who we'll get to in a future video. And was thoroughly outboxed in the first fight, and his wife asked him, "Oh, what happened?" It was the first time she'd seen him lose. And he said, "Oh, honey, I forgot to duck," which is one of the greatest little one-liners ever. In the rematch, he again got outboxed, but then later in the fight, he actually got Tunney on the ropes and knocked him down. And Tunney went down like a sack of potatoes. He was still upright. He was still holding himself up by the second rope, but he was down on his knees. And basically what they had to do was a new rule had come into place where the fighter who had just scored the knockdown has to go to a neutral corner. And Jack didn't quite clock to this because he'd had about 100 fights, just over 100 fights before then when that wasn't a rule. He waited above Tunney, but then the referee finally called him back. Then they started the count, and what they've worked out is that Tunney got up at the count of 14, rather than sort of waiting for the ref and getting up at the count of 9. And basically when Tunney does get up at the count of 14, he ends up running away from Dempsey for the rest of the round, which is that was more Tunney's sort of fighting style as well. Like Tunney, Dempsey, their fights, think Ali Frazier, where Ali is Tunney and Frazier is Dempsey. You know, Frazier and Dempsey, they were the hunters, they were the swarmers, they were the ones trying to cut the corners, cut the ring and get them in the corner. And Tunney and Ali were the ones who were trying to go around the outside and just hit and move. And sure enough, Tunney did end up surviving that fight in a very controversial fashion, retaining his newly won world heavyweight title that he'd just won from Dempsey the year earlier. And sure enough, we had to wait a little bit longer until someone became a 2-time world heavyweight champion, even though a lot of people say it should have been Jack Dempsey to be the first man to do that. So, hope you guys enjoy. I'm not going to rant about Jack Dempsey too long. I did try to control myself. I've kept it under 8 minutes, which is good, but big lesson from this video is keep your chin down, keep your head moving, and if you can get on the inside, then always throw those combination punches. Sort of like keeping your sort of chin down will allow you to sort of like having that good a disciplined defense is going to allow you to throw more combination punches on the inside along with your head movement. And that's the thing, like Tunney said, you know, Tunney beat Dempsey both times. You know, the joke is he kind of won every single round of those 20 rounds they fought together, except for the one where he got knocked down. But yeah, Tunney said, you know, I fought him for 20 rounds and never once hit him on the chin, you know. So yeah, Dempsey's amazing defense made him almost unknockoutable, and yeah, phenomenal fighter. I'll stop. I've just got to stop. I'll rant about Jack Dempsey all day, one of my all-time favourite fighters, and have a great day, guys. And remember, keep that chin down and keep the head moving.